Hello and welcome back to Mexico News Network's Breaking News. Thank you for staying with us all this time, and remember where we are. We're in the beautiful Riviera Maya, shooting and broadcasting from El Dorado Royal Spa Resort by Charisma, a gourmet inclusive hotel in the heart of the Mexican Caribbean. And don't forget to stay informed 24/7 by visiting our website www.mexiconewsnetwork.com, and also remember to follow us always on social networks on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Google+. You'll find us as Mexico News Network. Now let's continue with more information. On the last day of the London Book Fair, Samuel Fannes, director of Oxford's Bold Lane Library, presented a digital version of the Codex Mendoza to the public. This brand new app allows users to review previously unseen translations of the ancient document into Spanish as well as English. The importance of this app lies in the fact that researchers around the world now have an easier access to the Codex and to Mexico's past. According to the National Institute of Anthropology and History, ever since the app's original launch in January, it has registered almost 100,000 users along with its corresponding website. However, you may be wondering, what is the Codex Mendoza? A codex, first of all, is a pictorial and iconic document that pre-Columbian Mesoamerican people used to employ to preserve and pass on knowledge, mainly about taxes, historical facts, and geography. They were commonly made of deer skin or amate, which is a kind of bark paper. But the Mendoza Codex was made with European paper, and its main objective was to display the wealth of the New World to the Spanish monarchs. Divided into 3 chapters, the Codex Mendoza is a summary of the economic, political, and social panorama of the kingdom of the Tlatoani Moctezuma Xoyocotzin, who reigned over the Aztec Empire when the Spaniards first arrived to Mesoamerica. The very first part of the book tells in 18 sheets of the story of the founding of Tenochtitlan, a chronological list of 9 Aztec emperors, as well as a summary of the towns pre-conquered by pre-Columbian hegemons. The second part of the Codex is registry of sorts on the taxes that 38 provinces were required to pay to Aztec authorities. Towns under the Aztec rule paid the Tlatoani with maize, beans, clothes, weapons, animals, quetzal feathers, turquoise stone, and gold. And finally, the third is a narrative of pre-Columbian societies, which includes information on rituals, ceremonies, educations, marriage, war, family, and bureaucracy. This entire document was commissioned by Viceroy Antonio de Mendoza and ordered to be sent to the King of Spain in 1549. But the Codex would never arrive as the ship was intercepted by French buccaneers. After passing from one hand to another over a course of time, the Codex was finally brought by the Oxford's Bold Lane Library in 1659, where it still is preserved. Now, speaking of Mexican traditions and culture, we can't speak of it, music, or even food without immediately relating to the typical Mexican hat dance, better known as the Jarabe Tapatio. Often called the national dance of Mexico and recognized globally, the Jarabe Tapatio, in fact, dates back to the 19th century and has positioned itself worldwide as one of the most emblematic symbols of Mexico and its heritage. It's an authentic expression of folkloric and picturesque art. The Jarabe Tapatio is a piece that evokes a sense of national identity and celebrates Mexico's culture at its very highest. Now, without further ado, join me while we take a brief musical journey across the history, composition, and transcendence of the Jarabe Tapatio. Firstly, let's talk about its history. Originating in the state of Jalisco, the Jarabe Tapatio has a rather interesting story behind it. The earliest evidence of the Jarabe Tapatio dates back to the late 18th century, originally performed by female couples shortly before the Mexican War of Independence. Not long after, however, male and female couples began to perform it, only to have it banned by colonial and religious authorities for being morally offensive and challenging to Spain's ruling, despite its innocent dance moves. Back in those days, it was used as a form of protest and rebellion, and soon after the Mexican War of Independence came to an end, it became even more and more popular. However, you may be wondering, what does this actually mean? The Jarabe Tapatio is a dance that celebrates romantic courtship. It was performed by the national couple of Mexico, which is the Charro Mexicano and the China Poblana. During this courtship, the woman first rejects the man, but soon after a few taps on the dance floor, she, in fact, decides to take him in. The Jarabe Tapatio is a blend of the most famous dance styles of different regions across Mexico. The word jarabe is the Spanish word for syrup and in fact has an Arab etymology from the term sharab, meaning a blend of herbs, thus relating to a mix of components. The actual music piece is made with several rhythms, including waltz, polka, and indigenous American dances. Several theories point out that the actual meaning of Jarabe Tapatio, it could either symbolize the sweetness of a couple or also could be a mixture of elements that composes it. However, the Jarabe Tapatio features excerpts from Jarabe de Jalisco, from the state of the same name, Jarabe de Atole, a famous public domain jarabe from the late 1800s, the Son del Palomo, which is perhaps Mexico's most common son, the Jarana Yucateca, which is the typical dance style from the peninsula of Yucatan, the Jarabe Moreliano, which is directly from the state of Michoacán, and last but not least, La Diana, Mexico's musical applause number. How is the Jarabe Tapatio dance, you may wonder? Since it's all about a man wooing a woman into staying with him, the man's sombrero, which is in English meaning hat, is placed on the floor, and after a few minutes of tapping and hopping to the rhythm of the music, along with certain kicks and slides around the hat, the woman opts to pick up the hat when she feels it's time to accept him. Which then leads to the man to do a movement with his leg where he passes it straight over her head. The dance finishes when the woman holds the hat up and both dancers' faces disappear behind it, assuming the two are sealing a romantic interest with a kiss. And a little bit more about the attire. Both the man and the woman's clothing have gained recognition at a national and international level, symbolizing Mexico's pictorial heritage. The China Poblana, which is the woman, wears a wide, colorfully decorated skirt and blouse. Men, which is the charro, usually wear a black suit with metallic embroidery. The Jarabe Tapatio is performed by mariachi bands and today is one of the most, if not the most, popular folk songs of Mexico. Originally, the Jarabe Tapatio, as previously mentioned, was an expression of the voiceless, a chant of social justice and freedom, and slowly turned into today's emblem of Mexico. A charming, graceful, and vibrant song filled with vivid beats, lively melodies that capture every single one of your senses. Now, in other information, Irish nonprofit Frontline Defenders has launched its very first graphic novel dedicated to the difficult and dangerous work of a defender of women's human rights. The first series is called La Lucha and tells the true story of an everyday heroine who has grappled with a corrupt system of justice, Lucha Castro. Her story begins as such. 15 years ago, when she was running away from her own business in the Mexican state of Chihuahua. Then, the financial crisis of the 90s opened her eyes to the social problems left by the economic crash. From that point onwards, she began to fight to protect the rights of those, especially women, who lost their homes. That was not her only concern at the time. Feminicides, the targeted murdering of women, near the border were becoming increasingly common back in those days, which prompted her to help mothers, daughters, and relatives who had lost loved ones to this scourge. In the year 2005, she inaugurated the Center for Women's Human Rights, which is a place where she gives legal advices as well as documents aggressions against women from the north of Mexico. I am convinced that it is through acts of love and justice that we can proclaim the scandal of all the unjust acts imposed on women, represented by all forms of violence, many of them hidden. Although her work has led to her receiving death threats, she has never given up on a case. For this reason, Frontline Defenders has used her inspiring story to publish its first nonfiction graphic novel dedicated to human rights defenders all around the world. The book is being published by Verso in American and British bookstores. At the moment, it is only available in English. However, it will soon be released in Spanish for Mexico, Spain, and the rest of Latin America. This book gives evidence of the risks and advertises human rights defenders across the world have to face to make the rights of their communities a reality. Adam Shapiro, head of the campaigns at Frontline Defenders and co-author of the book, shared with Mexico News Network. It can also be downloaded in a digital form from the Frontline Defenders website. You'll find it at www.frontlinedefenders.org/La Lucha Donate. The book is available for a small donation to the organization dedicated to aiding human rights activists in dangerous situations all around the globe. And for our feature story of the day, we have Alejandro Solalinde Guerra, who was born on March 19, 1945 in Texcoco in the state of Mexico. A Catholic priest who has been fighting for the rights of immigrants for the past 8 years and is currently the coordinator of the South Pacific Human Mobility Ministry of the Mexican Bishop and director of the Hermanos en el Camino, which in English means Brothers on the Road, a shelter that provides Central American immigrants with a humanitarian aid and education. For over 30 years, Father Solalinde worked as a chief of parish in several churches around Mexico after being ordained as a presbyter by Bishop of Toluca, Arturo Vélez. In 2006, he founded Hermanos en el Camino in Ixtepec City, Oaxaca. The shelter has been taking care of thousands of migrants, mostly from Central American nations, offering them a safe place to stay, food, medical and psychological care, as well as legal aid. The city of Ixtepec has 24,000 inhabitants and stands between the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, with migrants coming in from the south. Now, the majority of the migrants arrive by stowing away on top of the freight trains coming from the neighboring states of Chiapas. Father Solalinde has a bachelor's degree in history and psychology from the Autonomous University of Mexico State, as well as a master's degree in systemic family therapy. He has been awarded with many distinctions. In the year 2011, he was awarded with the Emilio Krieger Medal, a title granted by the National Association of Democratic Lawyers, as well as the Peace and Democracy Human Rights Award at the Paz Gergo Prize for Democracy and Human Rights, as well as the Lionheart Acknowledgement from the University of Guadalajara Federation of University Students. In May 2012, Solalinde had to leave Mexico due to a series of threats targeting his humanitarian work. However, soon after, 2 months later, of exile, he came to Oaxaca and demanded that politicians make amends for the errors and abuses committed during their respective incumbencies. Father Solalinde stated the greatest challenge that he must overcome is the intimidation, the harassment, and the constant lack of respect from people who do not want his work of helping migrants to succeed. Many local authorities, gangs, and drug traffickers, sadly, would love to free themselves from the defenders of human rights. Incredible stories that move. This was all for today. Thank you for staying with us and joining us for today's breaking news only at Mexico News Network. Now also, don't forget to follow us on social networks on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. You'll find us as Mexico News Network, and keep informed 24/7 on our website, www.mexiconewsnetwork. Thank you for staying with us. I'm your host, Elisa Carballo, and we'll see you next time.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.